You're listening to Why Islam is True with Shaykh Hamza Karamali. Join Shaykh Hamza on this podcast series as he logically analyzes the claim Islam is true by examining evidence for and against it. As he does so, he explains the relationship between Islam and science and Islam and the other faiths. He also explores the arguments of the atheists, the nature of life and death, and ultimately, the purpose of human existence. This podcast is brought to you by Seekers Hub Global. You can subscribe to this podcast and all of our other podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, and on our website, seekershub.org/podcast. Visit seekershub.org for free online courses, our reliable answer service, and engaging media.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. This is the first in a series of short presentations in which my goal is to show why Islam is true. My approach in these presentations will be to take the statement Islam is true as a claim and to then evaluate whether or not that claim is true by examining the evidence for it as well as the evidence against it. This evidence-based evaluation of the statement Islam is true is what I mean by the title of this series of presentations, namely the title, Why Islam is True. Now, before I can evaluate the truth of this claim, I need to clearly define what I mean by the word Islam. This is because the word Islam is used in many different ways by many different people, and because of this widespread difference, if I don't define what the word Islam means in the claim that I am making, I run the risk that you, the listener, might understand it differently than I do. And as a result, the claim Islam is true will have a different meaning in your mind than it will in mine. When I then bring evidence to show why the claim that I am making is true, you will not see why it supports the claim Islam is true, because the evidence that you need to show that the claim that is in your mind is true is different than the evidence that I need to show the claim that is in my mind is true. To avoid this confusion, in this first lesson, I will clearly define what I mean by Islam when I make the claim that Islam is true. The title of this first lesson, therefore, is What is Islam? Let's examine some common meanings that people give to the word Islam. Perhaps the most common one is what Muslims believe and do. This is what university academics who study Islam mean when they use the word Islam. To a professor of Islamic studies at Harvard or Oxford, for example, Islam is what anyone who has historically called himself Muslim has believed in or done. This meaning is also what reporters give to the word Islam when they report news about Islam in the media. The problem with this definition is that when someone who calls himself Muslim does something that is not part of Islam, it will be included within what Islam is, because Islam is defined as what anyone who calls himself Muslim believes and does. So, for example, if someone who calls himself Muslim does something that conflicts with Islam, like blowing up a bomb to kill innocent people, then if Islam is what Muslims believe and do, anyone who says he's a Muslim believes and does, then this action would still be considered part of what Islam is, even though it's actually not. As you go through these presentations, it's important for you to keep in mind that this is not how I use the word Islam. This is not how I define the word Islam when I say that Islam is true. Many non-Muslims naturally equate Islam with what they see other Muslims doing, and many Muslims naturally equate Islam with what they see someone who is outwardly religious, somebody who has a beard, somebody who wears the hijab, somebody who speaks Arabic, somebody who appears to be knowledgeable. So many Muslims, they equate Islam with what they see such people do. when they then experience something unpleasant at their hands, it may drive them away from considering whether or not Islam is true. So what you need to do as you listen to these presentations is to consciously separate between any unpleasant experiences that you may have had at the hands of somebody who calls himself Muslim, and between what I am defining Islam to be in these lessons. Another meaning that is commonly in the minds of many young Muslims, particularly those who were raised in non-Muslim majority countries, is the do's or don'ts that they were pressured to do as children. The Sunday Quran lessons that they were forced to attend at the mosque, or the burger that they were denied because its meat wasn't halal. Another meaning that some people give to the word Islam is the confession of faith, the statement that I testify that there is no God but except Allah, and I testify that Muhammad is his messenger. By saying this statement, someone officially enters the community of Muslims, and that is why some people, they use the word Islam to refer to the confession of faith. Another meaning that political or social Muslim activists might have foremost in their minds when they use the word Islam is the struggle for peace and justice. In this series of presentations, as I evaluate the truth of the claim, Islam is true, what I mean by Islam is none of these things. What I mean by Islam is the claim that God created the universe, put us in it for a great purpose, and sent us messengers to tell us our purpose so that we might gain eternal happiness in our life after death. This claim comprises 4 sub-claims. First, it comprises the claim that God created us as well as everything else in the universe. Second, it comprises the claim that God sent us messengers. He did not simply create us and leave us to be, but He sent us messengers, and that He charged these messengers with telling us the purpose of our existence. And finally, the 4th subclaim in this claim is the claim that our purpose will not be realized in this life, but in another life to come after we die. To recap, when I say in this series of presentations that Islam is true, what I mean by Islam is not what Muslims believe and do, nor do I mean by Islam the do's and don'ts that you might have been pressured to adhere to as a child, nor do I mean the confession of faith, nor do I mean a struggle for peace and justice. Rather, what I mean when I say Islam is true is that it is true that God created the universe, put us in it for a great purpose, and sent us messengers to tell us our purpose so that we might gain eternal happiness in our life after death. The truth of this claim comprises claims about God, claims about individuals who claimed to be God's messengers, claims about the purpose of our existence, and claims about another life after death. Our investigation of all of these claims needs to begin with an examination of our claims about God. The first of these claims is that God exists. This is where all of these claims begin, and that is where I will begin in the next presentation. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
Thank you for listening to Why Islam is True with Shaykh Hamza Karam Ali. If you like this podcast, we'd appreciate if you left us a review on iTunes and Google Play. Help Seekers Hub spread the light of guidance to millions around the world by supporting us through monthly donations by going to seekershub.org/donate. Your donations are tax deductible in the US and Canada.